Hello and welcome to the One Take Show and a very happy Independence Day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation with Mr. Pallab Das. Mr. Das is a faculty member at National Law University, Orissa, where he is pursuing his Ph.D. Previously, Sir has cleared the reputed Odisha Judicial Services Examination in 2013 with the rank of OJS 5. In this episode, he's going to answer all the questions around the topic of Judicial Services Preparation strategies, and he's also going to talk about legal academia, where we can obviously learn about a lot of things about what all needs to improve and how we can contribute. If you find this video useful, please make sure you drop in a like. Also drop in a comment about what you think can be improved, should be improved, what else should be included. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump right in. Hello, so welcome to the One Take Show. What a pleasure it is to have you on this podcast. I think every law student who has followed your career, who has looked up to you, will really tune into this podcast with so much enthusiasm in order to learn so much. And obviously, there is a great deal of information that we can gather from this conversation. So thank you so much for taking time off your really busy schedule, sitting down with me for this amazing conversation that we're going to have.
You're welcome, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to come to your talk show. I'm sure this is one of the unique talk shows in the legal industry and the legal fraternity, and absolutely it will be the number one talk show very soon.
Thank you so much. Well, that is the aim, and I think as long as I keep getting the support of guests like you, and I keep having the guidance and the supervision that I receive, I think I will definitely serve the purpose of this podcast, which is to benefit a lot of law students. Before we get into the specifics of our conversation, obviously there are major themes that we are going to cover in this conversation. I would first like to know a little bit about your journey, your background, what inspired you to do law, and what was the experience with law school that somehow motivated you to stick with law and exploit the opportunities that you did?
Right. I would like to start with the fact that I'm 80s born. And being an 80s born, it is a sandwich year where you leave the old days and you get accustomed with the new and technological advancement. So for us, it has been seeing something and not seeing something. So having given this background, I am from a traditional university. I studied from ILS Law College, Pune. And it was at that time one of the best, and still now is counted amongst the best of the law schools. So I think I have had a wonderful journey in terms of my law school in the 5 years that I've been there. So I completed my LLB, and then I came back. I started with my practice here in Odisha. And then, fortunately, I got through the Judicial Services, the Orissa Judicial Services in the first attempt. But then I think destiny had other plans. I got a scope to have my higher studies with a scholarship. Soon enough, I left Judiciary, started with my practice, and then as and when the LLM application went through, I went to UK to do my master's in maritime and commercial arbitration. So that's been a short journey.
Well, it's extremely inspiring from every aspect. But before I start asking you the most staple questions, as in how did you get into judiciary and what all plans did you have, this must have been a very sort of a colossal decision that you had to take when it comes to leaving judiciary and moving towards something which is very different, or something that you had to follow as a part of your passion. How difficult was the decision, and how did you overcome all those societal stigmas or those expectations that come with it?
Very pertinent question. It is a lot of emotions are involved in this. I would say it was very difficult for me not to take the decision to leave, but to leave it actually, because it's considered to be a top class job. You have a lot of respect. You are doing a lot of service to the society. But then having born free, I am absolutely a free person. if you can give me freedom, I would probably fly as high as possible in terms of my work, in terms of my personal life. But having a lot of restrictions in the judiciary itself, I mean, I'm happy that I got it through the first attempt, and then I was lucky that I decided that this is not the field for me. Otherwise, it takes a long, long time for people to prepare and attempt, reattempt, and then a lot of years are wasted. So I'm blessed that I got to get inside judiciary, see how it works, whether it suits me or not. And back behind, my calling for academics was always there, was pinching me from behind that so I think it's time that you should take a strong decision. It's been difficult, but I would say that was the best decision in my life that I took.
Right, right. And you've been an advocate and you've also been on the bench. How would when you see this sort of a dichotomy, if I must say, the difference from both sides of the dais, how do you observe that difference? Or did you somehow realize while you were a judge or as an advocate that okay, these are the things that I should keep in mind because I have an experience from both the ends?
Right. I mean, in terms of working culture, I would say that there's a lot of difference. Being in the bench, you have a lot of responsibility in terms of seeing whether you are convicting an innocent or you are not convicting the wrong person. So there is a lot of responsibility. But when it comes to the bar side, I would not say there is less responsibility, but an equal responsibility. But again, you have the time, you have the option to go ahead with appeals and second appeals and so on and so forth. So there is again the game is freedom. So I would say you get a lot of freedom in terms of when you practice, and there is less on the bench side. But then you have to work a lot. I mean, that's the factor when it comes to litigation. You have to work a lot.
Okay. And coming back a little about your experience with law school, I usually tend to ask this question to all of my guests because I think this question really answers sort of the most preliminary concerns for every law student. How do you see or expect a law student today in law schools to maneuver their way or somehow navigate their path in law school to have a career that is somehow similar to yours and follow your footsteps, in order to have a prolific opportunity in future to become a suitable candidate in whatever fields they're interested in, if perhaps in judiciary or in advocacy or in academia. So for those students who are still in law school, how would you suggest they should navigate their path?
Right. I mean, I would just like to state my experience in that sense. 8 to 10 years back, there was no such opportunities like you have today. And you have ample opportunities. If you see people are becoming entrepreneurs in the legal field. Back then, we only knew that there was litigation or there was law firm. So I always had this one motto that you have got one life, you must enjoy it. But that doesn't mean that you forget your career goals. So I had a very balanced life in terms of my law school. I used to study. I used to be involved in a lot of co-curricular, extracurricular activities, be within the campus, talk to people, talk to my professors, try to seek the opportunities. And now when I am in a national law university teaching, I see that you must try and grab all the opportunities that you have that comes in the law school. And these days, as I said, you get a lot of opportunities. Try to have a balance. Try to do everything. It is not just that because you want to do judiciary or because you want to litigate, you will be doing more courts or you will be just studying for judiciary. But I would say to be a holistic person, to have an experience, you must do everything, starting from internships, starting from sports, to cultural, to any kind of mooting activity, debating activity, painting activity, elocution activity. You just grab that wood, and that will define you in those 5 years. What you are in the first year is totally transformed when you reach the 5th year.
Right.
So I would say that you grab every opportunity that you have.
Perfect. And this now lays the foundation for me to now delve into my first theme of this conversation, that is your experience with academia. What inspired you to get into academia and opt academia as a career path? And how did you go about it, the initial phases, the struggles and the hurdles?
I remember in my 4th year of law school, I had asked one of my professors, can I take one of your classes? And she was very happy, and she said that definitely, of course, you should try it out. But back then, I did not know that that was the calling.
Okay.
And I went to my junior class and I gave a lecture on environmental law, and the juniors came and told me that you were excellent in terms of explaining, understanding, making the students understand. So that was the first step, I would say. But then, as I said, you transform through the years, and when you come to real life, you tend to, if you do not have a mentor, the only option that you have, and for me, is to experiment. So I decided that I would experiment, and I would stick on to that field that makes me the happiest person. And there are challenges, there were challenges, but then I think I myself as a person, I'm very happy that finally I found out what I'm good at. This has been the only profession, academia has been the only profession in which while I drive back home, I smile, I laugh,
Wow.
because I keep on thinking what all my students did today, what all talk we had, what all discussions we had in the class. It's something I remember this very vividly, that I've been driving back home and I'm smiling, thinking what happened today.
Perfect. Right. So, for any future aspirant who tries to think about academia as a career plan, what all things should he or she be aware of about with respect to, okay, so these are the things I should perhaps specialize in, or these areas have now good scope, or okay, perhaps if I want to get into academia, these are the essential set of skills that I should acquire, and these are the things that I should work on to become a better class of faculty. Because obviously, when we were last sort of messaging each other and scheduling this conversation, you mentioned how you would want to talk about the class of faculty, a better source of knowledge for students in national law universities. So with respect to that, touching a little bit of that, how can today's aspirants work in order to fulfill that goal, that dream?
Right. I would say that, if you're very sure by the time you're in fourth year that you would want to do you want to go or join academics, then I would say that you start developing the habit of reading books, because once you join academia, you study more than the students study.
Okay.
Faculty study more than the students study, because it's a task. You will probably have to answer so many questions in the class, and so I would say that is one thing. Second thing, you must practice how to control your fear, your anxiety, standing in front of 120 students and then delivering and remembering the topic that you want to discuss today. So this would be the second thing, that you cut your fear down. The third thing is that absolutely necessary is that once you finish your LLB, immediately do your LLM masters. Without masters, because in masters, what you do is that you tend to do a lot more research, and when you do a lot more research, you go in depth in a particular topic, and that gives you a wider perspective in terms of knowing and in terms of giving back to the students.
Right.
And then fourth, I would say that once you finish your LLM, in India, you must try to clear the national eligibility test, that is the NET, which I have reservations against, but then you have to, because that's the norm. And once you get that, you must immediately work on your PhD, because PhD is a must. And with the new education policy the cabinet approved, I believe that would be the benchmark to become, the starting level professor.
Right. And now coming to the big question, you've mentioned that legal academia in India requires professors who are competent, who can actually deliver. There's a better class of professors that you expect. I would like to know a little bit more about this. What exactly do you mean when you propound an idea like this? And what is it that we should expect from this proposition?
Yes, so when I say that in the legal academia it is more important, because if you just read one book and deliver, you yourself will not be clear about the fundamental questions. So when you are trying to deliver a particular topic in the class and to give your best, because to be a good teacher, what you need to do is hard work. Because I believe that if you are in academia, you would want to be a good teacher, a good academician. Otherwise, your sole purpose, your sole motive of serving and trying, because you're molding the student's career, you're trying to give a foundation to their character. And if you are half prepared, students would lose interest. And the best thing that a teacher can be complimented with is that you have been an inspiration for them. So I believe that you must prepare before you go to the class. And I remember I had sleepless nights when I first joined in academia, because you have this fear also. When you're new, how would how would your students react to you, whether they will accept you or not, and you have never delivered a lecture before. So I remember I had sleepless nights of reading one topic from 2, 3 books, 4 books, and trying to read case laws. When students do not read the whole case laws, but I would say that an academician should read the entire judgment and then deliver it to the students. And that is what I meant when I said that legal academia needs professors.
I think anyone who I have spoken to, and we've talked about academia, we sort of talked about the inspiration that they receive with respect to certain subjects and the things that they're specialized in. All of this roots back and comes back to that one professor, that one teacher, that one faculty member who has inspired them in a way to look at that subject, perhaps constitution or company law, from a different perspective, and that has inspired them to specialize. I think whatever you've suggested is gospel truth. Will really, really benefit all the aspiring academia aspiring students, law students, or we talk about the present faculty members or the law students, with respect to what they can expect out of their faculty members and how they can build strong connections. This is absolutely wonderful. This now takes me to the second theme of our conversation. And I'm really sorry, I'm starting a little bit. I just fallen prey to the humidity in Lucknow. But this is very important. I won't trade this for anything else. Judiciary preparation. A lot of my friends who I've spoken to when I start planning for any episode have suggested that, Kaustubh, why don't you talk about judicial services preparation, and who better to learn this from but you, sir. So I'll start off from a very naive point of view, sort of a very beginner stage, is how can you start from the very beginning, from the very scratch, and where to start the preparation work?
And I would like to, on a very lighter note, I would like to say this would be my third consecutive speech about judiciary. And this has been one question everyone has been asking me. And I would be happy to share it in your platform also. Now, there are 2 modes of doing this. One mode, and I've been saying this, one mode when you are in your 4th year, and you're absolutely sure that by the end of 5th year and when you are out of law school, you're sure that you're going to be judicial. That is one way of preparing. And the second way is that, just like me, I mean, till 5th year, nothing was sure what I'm going to do. And suddenly after you start your practice, you understand that, okay, let me give it a try. What's wrong in it? And you have very short time frame, let's say 3 months, 6 months time before the judicial examination. And so these are the 2 ways of starting a preparation and looking into judicial examination. So if you are in your 4th year itself, then I would say that take 1 month time and start with your bare act. Let's say, for example, in your judicial service examination, you have 7 papers to give. So you have 7 months time, and you must give yourself deadline. So if you are in college, you might be having a lot of pressure of academics and co-curricular, extracurricular. So you might ask me how to balance that. I would say that give 1 hour at least time. I'm sure you can give 1 hour time to that one particular subject, or let's say 10 sections. So give 1 hour every day and read 10 sections and make a note, a small note copy where you jot down the important section ingredients and the points. That is how you begin with your preparation in a long-term version of it. And after you finish your bare act, go to the books and read the books, and again make a note of it. And then you do your case laws. That is how you have a Bible of every subject in front of you. You don't have to go back and read 2 to 3 books just before when you start your revision. Okay. So you have 1 full year time. You finish all the papers by the time you end your 4th year. And when it's 5th year, you start reading other books, you start doing multiple choice questions, you start solving out problematic questions that you have in your guidebook or other preparatory books. So that's a concrete way of studying for the judicial. And the shorter version, I would say, is that you know that you have lesser time. Go back, take 10 years question paper, figure out which questions, which subject areas, which areas in a particular subject is given more emphasis by the judicial examiner, figure out and then try to give more focus on that. Take 15 days time, finish up those selected more important questions, and then move on to the lesser frequently asked questions. So you know that at least you are prepared with just in a very short period of time. But again, I would say Bare Act is absolutely, if you quote sections, if you quote ingredients, illustrations, you would get marks, because every examiner would want to know whether you have actually understood the particular section or not, and you remember it also.
Right. And how about the problem that law students face with respect to adapting to the judicial service examinations for every state? Is there a strategy that we can use so that we can adopt to, let's say, the judicial services examination of Odisha, Haryana, UP, or how should we go about that?
Yes, different states have different examination and different syllabus. Like in Odisha, we have to have Odia paper qualified. I mean, I must have qualified 10th with Odia as a paper. Similarly, in Hindi-speaking states, you must qualify 10th standard with your Hindi as a paper. And what is a very important factor in which many students fail or do not qualify is that they give less importance to the English paper. And English paper is something which, if you score more, your chances of increasing in the merit list increases, because you have something called as translation from Hindi to English, English to Hindi. Similarly, in Orissa, we have Odia to English. That is where majority of the people do not do well. Apart from the syllabus point of view, this is one very important factor in terms of different states. You must give more emphasis to this paper as well as the procedural law paper, because I believe procedural law paper is almost same or similar in all the states. What is different is different states have judgment writing as one of the portions in your examination, whereas we in Orissa Judicial Service, we do not have judgment writing. So you must prepare how to write a good judgment.
Right.
So I mean, that's the difference in different states.
Perfect. And one another question that keeps coming up is that for law students who do not go to coaching or do not have any such professional help with their preparation, how can they strategize in a way to compete with the, let's say, the students who are going to the coachings? How can we strategize our self-study in a way to be more prepared for the examination?
Right. And there are books available which gives you questions of different state judicial services, very difficult questions, and along with the questions they do give you solved answers. How should you solve the answer? I would say, if you are not opting for coaching, which as per my opinion, I mean, you should not, because you have been for 5 years and you know the law. I would say that you take those books, solve those questions. If you still have doubt, then maybe you can ask someone who is good at it or who has qualified the judicial services, and then they will probably give you a quick solution to those problems. But first, do it yourself. There is a saying that the power is within you. You can do it. Coaching is just a support, and I believe a lot of people can do it without support.
Right. And is there any book that you would recommend or that you might have come across?
I mean, I again say this, I'm not promoting any book. This is a disclaimer that I would say. But since it has helped me, I can tell you my advice. Universal's judicial book, a very fat book, contains both theoretical and problematic questions, solved answers, as well as multiple choice questions. That has actually been my Bible. Plus, the other thing that I say is your personal notes that you have made.
Right.
These two will help you definitely to clear the judicial in the very first attempt. Take it for granted. You can come back to me And whoever has seen this episode, and if you've gone through and got selected in the first attempt, please let me know. I'm sure you will.
Perfect. I will make sure I track down any such future candidate who gets into judiciary and ask them, so was your inspiration the one take show where we had this conversation, and then perhaps we can have that anthology again. But my perhaps one of the last set of questions in this segment would be that when it comes to focusing on each and every section of this examination, and when it comes to each and every area of study, how can we strategize to get better at every paper or get better at particular sections, and strategize with respect to time management, with respect to attempting the actual paper, going to the examination room and attempting the paper, all of that strategization, how can we go about that?
Right. One very important thing is that sometimes what happens is that your memory fails to remember what you studied yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of sections, let's say for example, IPC has 511 sections. How will you do that? So what you can do is that a very shortcut is you take 10 sections, make a shortcut word for it. Let's say the first letters of the section you can make a word. And thus by making a word, it becomes easier for you to understand and remember that, okay, S, for example, legal research methodology contains something called as SMART. Is a shortcut of what is specific. Your research methodology should be specific. It should be measurable. So SMART is a short abbreviation of long, lengthy provisions of legal methodology. So similarly, every section that you have, take 10 sections, take 15 sections, make short words and remember those words. And this might sound very silly, but I mean, this has been that when you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, when you brush your teeth, keep recalling, okay, S means this, Y means this, because you have nothing else to do while you're brushing. Why not utilize that particular time? This is the second method of remembering. And the third method is, even after doing these two things, you tend to forget. Make stickers in front, on top of your sleeping bed where you have a wall or something. The moment you wake up in the morning, you see that first. So automatically you have the zeal, okay, I have to start studying. And then if you've forgotten something, you again get to see that particular sticker and say, okay, so this section is this. This has been my practical experience, and this is how I have cleared in 3 months my judiciary.
Wonderful.
So these are nice shortcuts that I can recommend.
Perfect. I think every listener, including me, would be going back at this conversation and making notes in order to really make the best of this conversation. My last question to you here is that if you had to go back in time and sort of advise yourself when you were preparing for judiciary, what would be the basic pointers that you would give yourself, as in the basic niche areas as to cover this, and this? So what would be those basic pointers that you would give yourself?
Like in terms of preparing strategy, or in terms of subjects that I would choose?
Everything in general, like in general for the approach for the judicial.
Right. This is how I went. The heavier papers I completed first, and the lighter papers I went on last, because half of my stress was gone because of the heavier papers. So this is the first that I would say. Second, I would say that there is no shortcut. You need to work hard. Even if you are working somewhere, you come back, tell yourself that you need to give that 2 hours in the evening and study. You have to have that hard work approach. So this is the second thing, work hard. There is no substitute for work. And the third thing is that the moment you have it in your mind that it's a do or a die situation for you. Either you get it this year or you don't get it at all. I'm sure you will get that, you will get the push within yourself, and you will be able to study more, work hard more. And the fourth thing is that it's just a matter of some months of hard work. Once you clear this, you get a lot of free time to enjoy your life. So for those few months, you must forget everything. No family, no friends, no entertainment. It is hard work and hard work and hard work.
Right. I think this I think this principle and this entire segment will benefit so many students. Personally, it will benefit a lot of my friends and me as well when it comes to preparation strategy, the entire idea that we should have in mind. Thank you so much for describing it with such great lens of elucidity that everyone who tunes into this podcast will take away so much value that will add to their perspectives. Thank you so much for this opportunity to discuss judiciary, to discuss academia. As my last set of questions, like not exactly questions, sort of pointers that I would love to learn from you, as I am made aware of the fact that you have also written 2 books as editors. You've had interests when it comes to the classical dance and classical music and all of these extra curricular activities that must have added a lot of value to your personality and your professional front as well. How do you see this contributing to you as a person, and why is it extremely important for, let's say, the law students or legal professionals to aspire to inculcate all these cultural values into our personalities so that we can perhaps perform better professionally?
Right. One thing is when you are doing a lot of things simultaneously, you get to know your threshold. How much of labor can you give in the 24 hours that you have? So that is why I say when you're young, you take all opportunities that you have.
Right.
That is one thing, because I consider myself old enough not to do a lot of things now. But in terms of how it has benefited me, I believe I was very shy kind of a person, an introvert. And when I started doing all these things, it made me, it eased me up. Now I can talk to a lot of persons. I can initiate a conversation. So as a person, as a personality development, these are the personality traits that I've developed through the years by trying different field extracurricular activity. And the last thing that I would like to say is that very philosophical, but I believe everyone needs to listen to this. With the pandemic on way, a lot of people are still having a virtual rat race, I would say. And that is creating a lot of mental health issues among students because the competition has, although we had thought that the competition would ease down, but I think it has increased a lot because of the virtual world. So I would say that you have just got one life, and you need to be a good person. You need to be happy. And the end, when you are, I would say that in the end, when you're on your sick bed, you would rather like to say, what have you done in your life? Would you like to say that you have just worked and earned money and worked and earned money? Or you would like to say that, okay, this is my specialty, that I am a classical dancer. Apart from the work that I have done, apart from the money that I have earned. So that has been my philosophy, and I would like to say that laugh, smile, cry, live life as if you're a free person. Don't subjugate yourself to the societal norms, to the fact that you have to be someone, to the fact that there is no other way. You get second chances in life. There is a lot of things to be done in life. You must travel. You must travel to know. You must meet people. You must help people. You must do what you love to do to be happy. That is
perfect. Perfect. I think we all are aware that you've been an advocate for mental health for some time now, and the fact that everything that you've just mentioned adds so much value to me personally. And when it comes to any law student who's trying to grow with this process, we see that LinkedIn, for example, is completely on steroids during pandemic. Every law student, every professional doing something or the other. And as law students, I can't speak on behalf of the professionals, obviously, but as law students, we feel a lot of anxiety. We feel that identity crisis that exists. So I think whatever you've suggested is gospel. Everything that you've pointed out will really benefit every law student with respect to learning, with respect to perspectives. This has been a masterclass. I believe this episode has been the one episode that was absolutely necessary on this podcast, which will give so much value to every listener. Do you have any closing remarks for our listeners?
Yes, I mean, I teach my first years. So they're young, they're so beautiful. The innocence that they have, and the kind of, as I say, I smile, I laugh with them, I be myself with them. So I start with law and I start with L, the word letter L. When I start with the letter L, I say that I have 3 L's to discuss. First is law, second is life, and the third L is love.
Perfect.
So when you have law, you understand life. It's common sense basically. and in life, what is more important is love. I'm fond of quoting shairis. I do not know if this is the right forum to say the shairi or not.
Please do, please do.
But I would rather close by saying one very particular in these days time is that वक्त ने कुछ ऐसा सौदा किया मेरे साथ, वक्त ने कुछ ऐसा सौदा किया मेरे साथ कि तजुर्बा तो दे दिया लेकिन मेरा मासूमियत ले गया.
क्या बात.
So I would say that keep that innocence, keep the child in you. There is nothing that is more important than your innocence and your love in life. That's all.
Absolutely wonderful. All I can say is that I also have another podcast. It's called Ek Ghazal Rozana, where I recite ghazals and nazms and publish it. I think I have my first target guests for the recital for a potential episode. But thank you so much for this outstanding conversation, which has added so much value to my perspective personally. Now I think I will start looking at things so differently with respect to my career options, with respect to preparation for judiciary, with respect to my approach towards life in law school, and perhaps myself as a law student. Thank you so much for this glorious opportunity. I had a wonderful time. I hope you had a good time too.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It's the first time that I've done something like this, and I have no words. I wish someday we take it to higher platforms. Very good, very well done episode. I'm really thankful and grateful to you.
Thank you so much. I hope I can live up to the expectations and the sort of pedestals that you have set for us, and we can somehow work harder to make you proud for all the time and all the effort that you've invested in me and you have invested in this podcast. So we can make it even bigger in the future. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, sir.